Welcome to the formulize video about radio buttons. Now the sample form we've been using has a radio button element in it already. It has a series of radio buttons that let people choose the time of day. So if we configure that and look at the options, then we can discuss what's going on here. Now you can just add a series of choices. We could add some more if we wanted to create some new ones and start typing in whatever options you want to give the user. And the way that shows up in the form is like this. Here's a sample blank form ready to be filled in, and there's our 4 choices. So that's pretty straightforward. You can pick one of them if you would like one to be selected by default, and it's pretty much as you would expect. Now you can add one other interesting option here. The other option, curly bracket, capital Other, use the pipe character. It's usually Shift and then the slash above the Shift key. If you hit that one, then the shifted value is the pipe. It's a vertical line, and then a number. The number for other, what it says is other and then a number, and other 30 is going to generate a text box that's 30 characters wide. So the number is the width of this other box, and so what this does, it gives the user the typical, other choice that's often used in multiple choice questions. So if we reload the form with that change having been saved, then there's our other option. We could start typing in something else. It's often it depends on your situation whether you want or need to use other boxes. The problem with them, of course, is that they don't let you categorize the information that users are providing you with very effectively, because people start typing in all kinds of inconsistent and ambiguous things rather than using the specific choices you've made. But in some situations you want to retain that information, the other information that they might give you, and that could be important, so you can certainly do that. There's a resync option, which we'll talk about next, and the resync is useful when you're making changes and you want those changes to affect all the existing information. So for example, in our existing set of data here, we've got midday, evening, and morning. Well, suppose that we wanted to change morning. We decided we didn't want morning, and we instead wanted maybe let's just say before noon. I'm not sure. Morning's a perfectly good term, but just by way of example, let's say we're going to change that to before noon. Now if we just change that, it's not going to have, and saved it, it's not going to have any effect on the existing entries. But that's because sometimes you do just want to change things and you don't care about the existing entries, or you might just be reordering. Maybe for some reason you need to put these options in a different order, so you're going to mix them all up, and you're not actually changing anything about the existing data. You are changing your options. Your first option is different than what it used to be, and your second option might be different than what it used to be, but you don't actually want to affect the underlying data. You're just changing the options. But sometimes, like now, we might make a change and we want all of our existing data that's been collected to be updated to match this new choice. So in that case, if we change morning to before noon and we check off the resync checkbox, then when we save this, it doesn't look any different from this end. But if we reload this list of entries, then it's changed morning to before noon. So if you have a lot of data, that's obviously a really important feature and very useful. Now, one other basic option that is available to you is how the radio button options are going to be displayed to the user on the form itself. I'll just actually change this back to morning and resync before noon back to morning, since actually we like that better. Okay. Now, as far as the delimiter option, yes. So this this controls how the radio buttons show up on the form and how they're split. So line break is the default. Line break is what we've seen so far. Every option is on its own line. You can choose white space if you wish. We can save that, and it gives you basically the options in a horizontal arrangement. If we go back to our list here and go to start a new entry, then there they are with a with line with white space in between. Maybe you don't think that's enough white space, or you want some alternate split between them. You can just put in whatever HTML you wanted, such as a series of non-breaking spaces, or more complex HTML. Basically, whatever characters you put in here are going to be used as the separator between the options. So if we save that and go back here and reload, then we will see that they space out a bit more because we're now using a custom separator that is a bit bigger. Depending on what screen size you're typically deploying your applications on, then well, you'll want to use one kind of separator or the other, or more space or less space. So that's a common option that's used in other elements as well. Checkboxes, checkboxes obviously use the same thing. So the last thing that we can talk about as far as radio buttons go is this little note here that says if you the text that's visible to the user, you can make it different from the value that's stored in the database. Sometimes you might want numbers in the database because you want to do math on the values the user has selected, but you don't want the user to choose a number. You want some other option displayed on screen for them to make a choice and pick one, but the value you want to store is a number, so you can do math on it, or so that it matches some coded values that you're using for interpretation or analysis. Maybe you need to have numeric values in the database, so when you export, those values will be the right ones for importing into another system. So there may be various reasons you want to have some other coded value in the database that's different than the choice you give to the user. The pipe character is useful for this. So if we can maybe give our day values codes 1, 2, 3, 4. If for some reason that was how you wanted to represent them at the database level. Still give the users the same choice of text, morning, midday, evening, and night, but you're going to store these differently in the database. And if we hit the resync option when we do this, then well, you'll see what happens. So let's save our changes. Now if we just go here and reload the form, no change. The options that we're showing to the user are the same. But when we go back to the list, we now have coded numbers. We resynced the existing data with this change that we made to the options. And so now, even though that the user picked, in this case, morning, and morning is selected, at the database level, the data is showing up as a 1. So sometimes you want to do that, sometimes you don't. It's an advanced option. You obviously have to do this extra bit of syntax when you are creating the options using the pipe character to separate out the two sides. But you can certainly do that, and it is a really useful and powerful feature. So if we just to keep things a bit simpler, though we'll actually turn that off and keep the resync on, so that we'll get our text values back in the list. And if we just reload this page now, then the numbers have returned to the text values. So those are some of the different things you can do with radio buttons, and the the resyncing and the different data values, different separators for how you're showing them to users. There's quite a few different things there, and hopefully they're useful to you in your applications.